Welcome to the Government News Brief for Wednesday, September 21, 2016. In the news, Region 1 Chairman wants government to revamp the Education Strategic Plan, 2 new ferries to service Berbice River and Region 1 communities, and the National Occupational Safety and Health Policy is being revised. Stay tuned for the details. Thank you for staying with us. I am Azim Khan. Chairman of Region 1 wants the government to revamp the Educational Strategic Plan to focus on empowering parents to play their role in their children's education. Details in this report.
Brental Ashley, in a recent meeting with the Commissioner of Inquiry into the state of the education system, said the lack of emphasis by parents on education was influencing the poor academic performance of students in Region 1. The regional chairman called for the government to address this in the country's education reform.
For me, one of the things that they should focus on in their strategic plan is finding ways of how parents can be reminded of that importance. I know we have the national PTA coordinator and all of these things within the education system. But for me, the PTA has reduced itself just to talk about how we're going to raise funds, what is the next fundraising activity, or not actually talk about how are we going to empower parents.
The commissioner recently visited the region and met with the regional councillors, where the regional chairman highlighted the need for development of a curriculum specific to the needs of the region.
What may work on the coastland may not very well work in the hinterland. Talk about policies here, how policies are crafted, how they're developed, and because the children on the coastland will be on have a much more advantage over the children of the hinterland because of the resources that are offered, like for instance, internet services.
The regional chairman and councillors are among the many that have had their say in the COI into the state of the education system. The COI commissioners have been moving across the country, holding meetings and consultations with education stakeholders on the issues affecting the delivery of education in the country. The COI's nationwide consultations are to review, revise, upgrade, and extend the education sector's strategic plan. For this government news brief, Namila Henry Rowe.
The government of Guyana is in negotiations with the Indian government for the acquisition of 2 ferry vessels to better serve the Berbice Riverine and Region 1 communities. Details in this report.
One of the vessels will see resuscitation of the ferry services plying the Berbice River, while the other will be for improved services in Port Kaituma and Mabaruma Region 1. Minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Annette Ferguson, explains.
I know the residents who live down in the Berbice River, they have resorted to alternative, I think, using speedboats. Government, through the Ministry of Finance, they have been in discussions with the government there in India, right? Because we're trying to source 2 vessels.
Residents along the Berbice River have been struggling to transport produce to markets along the coastline. This will be addressed shortly, the minister explained. Port Kaituma and Mabaruma residents have been experiencing difficulties in transportation. Minister Ferguson also noted that the residents are soon to benefit from efficient and effective river services.
Currently, the Lady North Court take some hours to get to Port Kaituma and the Mabaruma area. So with the new acquisition of a ferry vessel, we would see a more improved service being given to the residents and the people there in region number 1.
Meanwhile, the Public Infrastructure Ministry is currently sourcing 2 engines for the MV Kimbia, which serves the Northwest District. Marceline Merchant, General Manager of the Transport and Harbors Department, says that the procurement has begun and the vessel will be in operation by the first quarter of 2017. In the 2016 national budget, $315 million was allocated to the Transport and Harbors Department for the development of stellings, wharves, and vessels. For the Government News Brief, I am Delicia Haynes.
The Ministry of Social Protection is urging the nation to unite in the fight against sexual abuse. Please be advised that this feature contains sensitive content.
Minister of Social Protection Waldo Lawrence is concerned with the high level of child sexual abuse and molestation cases in Guyana. She said that a child should not be forced to engage in sexual activities.
As an adult, you can go and engage another adult to have sexual intercourse with you. But as a child should not be placed in that position where one, they are made to conduct sexual acts or to engage in sexual intercourse with those persons.
Minister Lawrence says that the community, the church, and civil society have a vital role to play in ensuring that the country's children are protected.
You have someone who is vicious, who is cruel, and you want to bring home to them, look, what you're doing to these children. These are babies. This is like a little chick. It's like a little puppy. You wouldn't treat them the same way you treat a dog. You wouldn't treat them the same way you treat a hen. And that they should be nurtured and cared for.
Minister Lawrence emphasized that adults and young adults are capable of representing themselves, but the children are incapable and should not be put in such position.
We are so confrontational. Everything we want to fight over when we should be working to find solutions to them. We need to take away the negative, that negativity that is being spewed out there about the ministry.
The ministry will be working to strengthen the Sexual and Domestic Violence Unit and related legislation. The ministry will also be collaborating with the Ministry of Public Security on the final draft of the juvenile bill. The Ministry of Social Protection recently made known its deep concern about the pervasive silence on child sexual abuse in society. A rally was today held in Linden under the theme Breaking the Silence on Child Sexual Abuse as part of Child Protection Week. For the Government News Brief, Sinika Thorne reporting.
Government has begun laying the groundwork for the revision of the National Occupational Safety and Health Policy with the International Labour Organization. Details in this report.
The government of Guyana, in partnership with the International Labour Organization, ILO, is working with Guyana to develop a fresh, decent work country program. During the stakeholders' consultation today at the Herdmanston Lodge to discuss the revision of the National Occupation Safety and Health Policy, Minister within the Ministry of Social Protection, Keith Scott, says the revised safety policy must incorporate technology.
An examination of the primary focus and agenda of the Factories Act and OHS Act provides a distinct understanding that a social policy is not only absolutely necessary, it must be current and reflective of the evolving technology, which does not in any way transgress the right and safety of workers.
The minister told stakeholders to own their part in the shaping of the policy.
It is the hope of my government that the participation of the main stakeholders in this exercise will not only lead to an increased involvement in the shaping of the policy, but to their collective ownership as well.
Unsuccessful attempts were made in 2002 to review the national safety policy, which is over 20 years old. The revised policy and work plan is expected to be completed in October. The 3-day consultation session will conclude on Friday. For the Government News Brief, I'm Tiffany Rogers.
Students of the St. Cuthbert Mission Secondary School will soon benefit from the introduction of art and sports that will aid in promoting well-rounded individuals. Details in this report.
Renowned Guyanese artist George Simon is working with the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs to introduce art at St. Cuthbert's Mission Secondary School. Minister within the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Valerie Garrido-Lowe, says the initiative will benefit the students.
We want to have encourage painting too, art in the school, to have an exhibition during that time too. So we really want them to think that their school is special, that we're paying an interest in them, sports-wise and also the arts and so on, and just to give them some excitement and put more meaning into their lives and so on.
To further push the initiative, Minister Garrido-Lowe says a bena will be built in the serene setting of the village. Student artists will now be able to practice there. It will also serve as a tourist attraction. Additionally, there will be the introduction of the school's football tournament. The competition is scheduled to commence in November with the aim of promoting it annually.
I think it's a grand idea, and since I'm into sports and I'm now the patron for women's football in Guyana, I am happy to promote football on the whole. So I took some footballs and some of the those, what you call it, the cones and so on, to encourage them.
The introduction of art and sports in the school is part of the government's educational reform plan. For the Government News Brief, I am Delicia Haynes.
We have come to the end of today's edition of the Government News Brief. The details of these and other stories can be found on GINA's website. GINA has an active Facebook page, and we encourage you to visit and like us. Join the GINA mailing list by subscribing to our website and YouTube channel. Do join us again tomorrow for another edition of the Government News Brief. Thank you for watching.